When a daughter barred her father from her wedding after he raised concerns about her fiancé, he responded by cutting off her access to his credit card. The decision left her grappling with the consequences of her choices, trapped in a situation she wasn't prepared for. After the divorce from his ex-wife, the father devoted himself to ensuring his daughter, Emily, had the support she needed. She was only 12 when he and Laura parted ways. Though the separation was civil, it left Emily with emotional scars. Laura remarried within a year and soon welcomed 3 new children, a daughter followed by twin boys. As Laura immersed herself in her new family, Emily felt increasingly sidelined, like an afterthought in her mother's life. Initially, the father didn't fully realize the toll this took on Emily. He thought she just needed time to adjust. But as time passed, it became clear that Emily felt abandoned, as though her mother had replaced her with her new siblings. Laura's focus was unmistakably on her new children, leaving Emily to navigate her sense of rejection alone. The father knew he had to step up to fill the void. He threw himself into being Emily's rock. He worked extra hours to provide for her, never missing a soccer game, parent-teacher meeting, or significant moment in her life. His mission was to be her unwavering support, the one person she could always rely on. Looking back, he wonders if he overdid it. Perhaps he shielded her too much, gave too freely, and didn't teach her enough about independence. The trouble began when Emily announced she was taking a 2-year break from high school to find herself. The father wasn't thrilled, but chose to support her decision. Not every teenager follows the same path, he reasoned. Some need more time to chart their course. But instead of pursuing growth or purpose, Emily spent her days lounging, glued to her phone, binge-watching shows, and hanging out with friends who seemed to lack ambition. These weren't the kind of people who would push her to grow. They were as adrift as she was becoming. He tried to talk to her, but every attempt turned into an argument. Any suggestion that she refocus her energy was met with accusations of being unsupportive or out of touch. He felt like he was walking on eggshells, trying to balance encouragement with gentle guidance. The breaking point came when he caught Emily sneaking out late one night. He found her climbing out her window, and when confronted, she lashed out, treating him like the enemy. She couldn't see that he was trying to protect her. She only saw someone blocking her freedom. That night he sat alone, questioning his approach. Had he been too lenient, given her too much freedom, or was this a deeper wound from the divorce and her mother's neglect? Desperate to help, he turned to therapy. Emily agreed to counseling, and for a brief period it seemed to help. She appeared more open, more willing to express her emotions. But when the sessions grew challenging, she quit, repeatedly. This cycle of starting therapy, abandoning it when it got tough, acting out, and starting again persisted for years. He tried everything else he could think of: heartfelt talks, family trips, even incentives like new gadgets to spark her interest in school or activities. He planned vacations, hoping a change of environment might shift her perspective. Nothing worked. Finally, after 2 draining years, Emily agreed to return to school. The father was overjoyed, believing they were finally turning a corner. He thought the effort and worry had paid off, that Emily was ready to take her future seriously. But that hope was short-lived. Just 6 months after returning to school, Emily met Ryan. Ryan, 26, worked as a delivery driver for a local bakery owned by his family. He had dropped out of school after 9th grade and seemed content drifting through life. His idea of ambition was taking things as they came. The father tried to reserve judgment. A job was a job, and not everyone needed a degree. But as their relationship deepened, warning signs emerged. Ryan wasn't just aimless, he was reckless. He'd been married briefly at 21, a marriage that collapsed within 6 months for vague reasons. It was clear he wasn't ready for a serious commitment, let alone marriage. But Emily was blind to it. To her, Ryan was perfect, funny, attentive, and someone who made her feel valued in a way she hadn't in years. The father wanted to support her happiness, hoping her instincts were sound, but every detail of their relationship raised red flags. Then, out of the blue, Emily announced they were getting married. It wasn't a conversation or a request for advice. It was a done deal. The date was set, plans were in motion, and she hadn't even hinted at it beforehand. When he tried to discuss it, she shut him down. "You're just upset because I'm happy," she snapped. He was at a loss for words. How do you reason with someone consumed by infatuation? How do you convince your daughter she's rushing into a mistake when she's convinced she's right? That night, alone in his study, he replayed every sacrifice he'd made for Emily, every late night at work, every moment he'd prioritized her. Now he felt powerless as she raced toward disaster. When Emily announced her engagement, it felt like a punch to the gut. She didn't sit him down or seek his input. She mentioned it casually over dinner as if it were no big deal. "Ryan and I are getting married next month," she said, beaming like it was the greatest news. He thought she was kidding. "Married? What do you mean?" he asked, hoping he'd misheard. "We're in love," she said with a shrug. "We've got the date and everything planned." He was stunned. His 19-year-old daughter, who hadn't finished high school and had no job, was planning to marry a man she'd known for mere months. A man with no direction, no savings, and no plan. "Emily, isn't this moving too fast?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. "Marriage is a huge step. Have you thought it through?" She rolled her eyes. "Dad, you always make everything so complicated. Ryan and I are meant to be." She made it clear his approval wasn't needed or wanted. That hurt deeply. He'd always been her biggest supporter, yet now his opinion was irrelevant. He tried again. "Emily, you're so young. You have time to focus on school, your dreams. Why rush into this?" Her voice turned cold. "You're just being negative. I knew you wouldn't get it." It hit him then, this wasn't a phase. She genuinely believed she was making the right choice, and nothing he said would change her mind. Over the next few days, he tried to raise practical concerns. How they'd manage money, where they'd live, how they'd pay bills. "Do you have a plan?" he asked. "Have you talked about rent, utilities?" She brushed it off. "We'll figure it out," she said as if it were trivial. Love is what matters. He couldn't believe her naivety. "Emily, love is important, but it doesn't pay the rent or buy groceries. Marriage requires planning." She scoffed. "You're so stuck in the past, Dad. You don't understand." Frustrated, he decided to meet Ryan himself, hoping to get through to him. They met at a local cafe, and the father tried to keep an open mind. Ryan was polite, even charming, but as they talked, it became clear he was clueless about the commitment he was making. "What's your plan for the future?" the father asked. Ryan shrugged. "We'll take it as it comes." The father bit back his irritation. "Marriage isn't something you just wing, it takes structure, foresight. Do you have savings, a budget, goals?" Ryan nodded vaguely, clearly not engaged. The father tried another angle. "Emily's still in school, she doesn't have a job. Are you ready to support her while she figures things out?" Ryan's response was disheartening. "We'll make it work. Love's more important than money." That sealed it. Ryan wasn't malicious, but he was unprepared, and Emily, already struggling to find her footing, was diving into a situation that could derail her further. That evening he sat down with Emily again. "I'm not trying to control you," he said gently. "I just want you to thrive. Can't you see this isn't the right time? You have so much potential, why not focus on that first?" Her response was devastating. "If you can't support me, don't come to the wedding." Her words cut deeply. "Emily, you don't mean that," he said softly. "I do," she replied, her voice icy. "If you're going to be negative, I don't want you there ruining my day." Stunned, he realized his own daughter was excluding him from her wedding because he disagreed with her choice. That night, he made a decision. If she didn't want him at her wedding, he wouldn't fund it either. She'd been using his credit card, meant for emergencies, to cover the wedding expenses. The next morning, he canceled it. She noticed quickly. Within hours, his phone was flooded with furious calls and texts. "You've destroyed everything," she screamed. He took a deep breath. "Emily, if you're ready to make adult decisions, you're ready to face adult consequences. You said you didn't want me there, so I'm not paying for it." As expected, she unleashed a torrent of insults, calling him controlling, cruel, and uncaring. She accused him of trying to ruin her life. But for the first time, he didn't feel guilty. He loved Emily fiercely, but he couldn't keep enabling her poor decisions. If she wanted to act like an adult, she needed to understand what that entailed. As painful as it was, he stood by his choice. After canceling Emily's access to the credit card, he prepared for the backlash. He didn't want to escalate things, but he wasn't going to bankroll a wedding he was banned from. That was his line in the sand. Emily's reaction was intense. She stormed into the house that evening, her face red with anger. "How could you do this to me?" she yelled. He stood firm. "Emily, I've supported you through everything, but I'm not funding a wedding I'm not welcome at. That's not how this works. You're so selfish," she shouted. "You don't care about my happiness, only about controlling me." Her words stung, but he held his ground. "No, Emily, I care about your future. That's why I'm saying no. Adult choices come with adult responsibilities." She stormed to her room, slamming the door. For days, they barely spoke. She kept her distance, and the house felt tense. Still, he didn't waver. He decided to enlist someone who might reach her, his mother, Margaret. Emily and her grandmother were close, and he hoped Margaret's straightforward approach might help. When he explained the situation, Margaret sighed. She's stubborn just like her mother, but I'll try. They arranged a family meeting with Margaret leading the discussion. Emily sat with her arms crossed, visibly defensive. Margaret didn't hold back. Emily, marriage isn't just about love, she said. It's about maturity, commitment, and a real plan. Have you and Ryan thought about how you'll live? Do you have any savings? Emily rolled her eyes. We'll figure it out, Grandma. Things are different now. Margaret's expression hardened. Times change, but the basics don't. Love doesn't pay rent or buy food. Marriage is work. She shared stories of her own struggles early in her marriage, the sacrifices she and her husband made to survive. It's not a fairy tale, Emily. If you're not prepared, it'll crumble. Emily's response was sharp. You don't get it. Ryan and I know what we're doing. Margaret stood up, exasperated. Then you'll have to learn the hard way. She left, disappointed. The father saw the worry in her eyes, mirroring his own. Despite his efforts, Emily and Ryan went ahead with the wedding. When she came home that day, she slammed the door. We got a loan, she said defiantly. You thought you could stop us, but you didn't. He was shocked. A loan? Emily, you're starting your marriage in debt. Do you understand what that means? Don't pretend you care, she snapped. You abandoned me. He stayed calm. No, Emily, you pushed me out. Don't rewrite this. She glared, then slammed her door again. The wedding took place without him. A neighbor, Sarah, whose daughter attended, filled him in. It was fine, she said. There were flowers and music, but it felt rushed. Ryan's parents didn't look thrilled. That offered no comfort. He'd hoped Ryan's family might intervene, but they clearly had no influence either. While Emily walked down the aisle, he sat alone, picturing the moment he'd always imagined, giving her away. Instead, he was entirely excluded. Before she left for the ceremony, he left a note in her room, a brief message wishing her well despite his reservations. She was still his daughter. Months passed with no contact. Emily and Ryan moved into a small apartment, and she didn't reach out. He figured she needed to face reality and refused to bail her out again. Then one evening, Ryan showed up at his door looking worn out. Can we talk? He asked. The father invited him in. Ryan sat fidgeting. We're struggling, he admitted. The loan payments, rent, were behind on everything. Emily's been looking for jobs, but the father knew the rest. Without a diploma or experience, her options were limited. Would you consider helping us just until we're back on track? Ryan asked. The father met his gaze. You both said love was all you needed. Do you still believe that? Ryan looked away. I was wrong. The father nodded. I'm sorry you're struggling, but this is your responsibility. Emily said she didn't want me in her life. I'm respecting that. Ryan stood, defeated. I understand, thanks anyway. That night, Emily called, furious. How could you embarrass Ryan like that? He asked for help. Emily, you told me to stay out of your life, he said. Now that things aren't working out, you want my help? You can't have it both ways. You're heartless, she screamed, hanging up. Weeks later, a late-night text from Emily arrived. Are you awake? I need to talk. Her voice shook when he called. I think I'm pregnant. His heart stopped. Are you sure? No, she whispered, but I'm late and I just feel it. Dad, we can't afford this. We're barely surviving. He wanted to point out that this was the result of her choices, but he couldn't. Let's take it step by step, he said. I'll book you a doctor's appointment tomorrow. She was anxious the whole way to the clinic. He waited in the car. When she returned, she was quiet. They said to wait a week and test again, she mumbled. That week was agonizing. Emily barely slept, texting him constantly. For the first time in years, she seemed to want him around. At one point, she asked, Dad, could you give Ryan a job at your agency, just temporarily? He ran a small creative firm, and Ryan lacked the skills or drive to work there. We'll discuss it after the test, he said. You're just dodging, she snapped. Why can't you help? Emily, he said firmly, we need facts first, one step at a time. The test came back negative, and he hoped it would be a wake-up call. Instead, Emily grew resentful again. You still won't give Ryan a job. What kind of dad are you? He sighed. I've always tried to help, but you shut me out. You can't pick and choose when I'm involved. She glared. Everything you have will be mine someday anyway. You could at least act like you care. He was stunned. Nothing's guaranteed, Emily. I might retire, travel, start over. That future isn't yours to claim. You're selfish, she spat. You only care about yourself? He didn't argue. It was pointless. The distance between them widened. He considered giving in, sending money, or offering Ryan a job, but he knew it would only delay the lesson. Then Laura called, furious. How can you let Emily struggle like this? She's your daughter. Laura, I've supported her for years, he said. She made her choices. This is on her. You're destroying her life, Laura snapped. No, he replied. Emily's in charge of her life. If she wants change, she has to own it. Laura hung up. Every day he hopes Emily will see that his actions came from love, but for now he waits. Parenting means loving your child, even when they make it incredibly difficult.